To start, I'm using my template that I went ahead and cut out on my tacky tape or my double-sided tape. The template is from Kay Hobbs Designs. She has a ton of cute templates that are already pre-sized depending on the cup that you're needing it for. Now I'm just going to apply my design directly to my tacky tape, so I'm just removing one piece at a time and I'm lining up both sides so that the design does match when I wrap it around my cup. So I am just using this foil here and I'm just using my squeegee tool to make sure that I rub it in and that I do cover the entire section here. If you're missing any spots from where your foil didn't fully stick to your tape, just go back and lay the foil down and just rub it again with the squeegee tool, just making sure that it's fully covered. Then I'm going to use this eyeshadow brush and I'm just going to rub the mica directly onto my double-sided tape here, just doing the same thing. You don't need a ton of mica, you can just lightly rub that in and then brush off any excess with a chip brush. Now you can do this method the way that I'm doing it here in the video by applying your design to the double-sided tape before you place the template on your tumbler. However, this was my first time trying this method and I personally am not a fan of this method, so I would actually recommend placing your template onto your tumbler first and then applying your design. Mostly because I found it easier to wrap my template around my tumbler and get a nice straight line without my design, and then if you do mess it up like I definitely did here about 8 times, then it's a lot easier to just rip off the double-sided tape and start again than having to do your entire design over again. You do also want to make sure that you don't cut all the way through on your tape. You just want it to cut enough to where you can peel these pieces off, but you don't want it to cut completely through so that your template sticks together when you go to transfer it on your tumbler. So I'm just going to continue my same pattern until my template is fully covered. For this larger section, I did remove it here and I am actually using vinyl to place that down. So just keep in mind any bubbles that you have on the double-sided tape will show through the vinyl. So just make sure that the section here is completely flat, that you don't have any of those air bubbles. And if you do, just make sure to use like a weeding pen so that you can pop any of those bubbles. Then I'm going to do the bottom half of my template, just making sure that I am matching up the same pattern. With my foil strips, I tried to use every last bit of the foil that I could, so I just made sure to keep using these same strips, and if I was missing any part of the sections on the foil, I would just go back in with the same foil and just rub that down with a squeegee to make sure that it was fully covered. Once you have your template completely filled out, don't be afraid to go in with a chip brush and just rub over everything to make sure that everything is laying flat, you don't have any extra pieces. That way when you epoxy, you will have less chance of something spreading that you don't want it to. It is very durable, so if you use the chip brush and you do rub that design in, you won't have to worry about it chipping or flaking off. It will essentially adhere to your tape. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I completely messed this template up when I went to transfer it onto my tumbler, so that part of the video is not shown because I did have to redo the entire template again after I cut it out and applied it onto my tumbler first. Now for the epoxy. So if you are not familiar with the new CCDIY Turbo Epoxy, it is incredible. It is life-changing. You guys need it. Normally for my epoxy part of the videos, I would skip through or fast forward most of it because you don't need to see me mixing epoxy for 5 minutes. However, I wanted you guys to see full well how incredible this epoxy is. There are no bubbles, how easy it is to apply, and the consistency of it. Now, if you are familiar with CCDIY's other epoxy like Fast Set or Artist Resin, those two epoxies are both relatively thick. This epoxy, as you can see while I'm pouring it here, is most definitely not. It is a very thin epoxy. If you are not familiar with it, it also does have a crazy fast curing time. So as soon as I mix together my equal parts here, I am going to mix relatively fast and I'm going to apply it immediately to my tumbler. Your working time with this tumbler, from applying it directly to your tumbler and mixing it, you have about 3 minutes before it starts to harden. I would try and do your best to get it onto your tumbler and torched within 5 minutes. That's how quick this is. So once I start to mix them together, you'll see I am not light-handed with it. I mix it like a crazy woman, which I know can cause micro bubbles. However, you'll see after I'm done mixing here, it really is crystal clear. And then I just hit it with a torch just to be sure, and it is shiny flawless. A couple of things to note with this epoxy. So one, it is definitely thinner, and you do want to make sure that you are doing thin coats. Do not come in with a super thick coat because it can cause ripples or waves in your epoxy. So less is more here. Just apply a thin coat over it. Remember, this epoxy is kind of just to help you speed up the process, but it is not meant for a final coat. Number two, this epoxy, so if you apply your coat, your first coat, just to seal everything, within the next couple of hours, you do want to make sure that you apply another coat of epoxy, whether that be with Artist Resin, Fast Set, whatever your choice is, but you want to make sure that you get another coat onto the tumbler, otherwise it could repel your epoxy. So just remember, work fast, thin coats, and apply a final coat, and you are ready for turbo. This next part of the tutorial was only 30 minutes after I had applied it. You could see I'm doing the touch test here, which is normally a no-go with epoxy, but this one really was dry to the touch in just 30 minutes. Now I'm just using my pre-cut vinyl stripping and I'm just outlining my lines here. Now, as I mentioned before, because this is a thinner coat of epoxy, just be careful when you are lifting up, whether it be the vinyl stripping lines or whether it be a decal, because it can pull the epoxy layer off. So that's just something to be mindful of when you're working with this. Now I'm just going in with my vinyl design and I'm just going to apply that to the middle portion of my tumbler to complete my design. I'm going to just mix up 10 milliliters each part A and B epoxy. For this step, I am using Fast Set, and I'm just going to apply that over the entire tumbler, let that cure. I did also glitter the bottom of this tumbler, that was not shown in the video. Then I'll add my final coat, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more fun, crafty tutorials, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe.